The first shadow glided closer. Here is your first question. What is greater than the gods, more evil than the devil? The poor have it, and if the rich eat it, they die. Adora bit her lip. She had heard this before. She took a deep breath. The answer is nothing. The first shadow screamed and disappeared into the ground. Adora's hands shook, but she stood tall. The second shadow floated forward. Your second question. The more you take, the more you leave behind. What am I? Adaora frowned. The more you take, she muttered. Suddenly, she knew. Footsteps. The second shadow howled and vanished. Only one remained. The last shadow circled her slowly. Final question. I speak without a mouth and hear without ears. I have no body, but I come alive with the wind. What am I? Adaora closed her eyes. She imagined the wind. She imagined whispers. Her eyes snapped open. An echo! The third shadow shrieked. She is worthy! Then all three shadows were gone. Adaora fell to her knees, breathing hard. I did it! But she knew she was not done yet. The drumming in the distance was getting louder. The tests were getting harder. She looked at the path ahead. It was darker now, more dangerous, and somewhere deep in the Forbidden Lands, something was waiting for her. Something that would decide if she would ever be free. Adaora wiped the sweat from her forehead. Her body ached. Her cursed hair dragged behind her like a heavy chain, and the strange world around her seemed to whisper her name. The air was getting colder. The drumming in the distance grew faster. What else is waiting for me? She thought. She pushed forward. The trees became taller, their branches twisting like arms reaching for her. The ground was covered in thick mist, and Adaora couldn't see more than a few steps ahead. Then she heard it. A cry. A deep, sorrowful voice calling for help. Somebody, please. Adaora froze. A man, sitting against a tree. His clothes were torn, his face thin and pale. He had no eyes, only darkness where they should be. Adaora's stomach turned. Help me, the man whispered. I have been lost for so long, forgotten by the world. Adaora's hands shook. This could be a trap, but if she ignored him, would she fail the test? Her heart pounded. What do you need? She asked. The man lifted his hands. Water, he said. Adaora remembered the wooden bowl the faceless man had given her. She still had a few drops left. She wanted to ignore it. But she remembered the old woman's words. Do acts of kindness. She took a deep breath and followed the voice. She stepped forward carefully, her cursed hair dragging behind her, catching on tree roots. Then she saw him. She knelt beside the man and tipped the last drops of water into his mouth. The moment the water touched his lips, he vanished. The trees around her shuddered. The mist cleared. And in the dirt where the man had sat, words appeared. Kindness opens the path. A new path formed before her. Adaora swallowed. She had passed another test, but she knew the worst was yet to come. The new path led to a deep canyon. On the other side, she could see a golden doorway, the next step in her journey. But there was no bridge. Instead, there was only a rope, a single thin fraying rope stretched across the canyon. Adaora's heart raced. I have to cross this? She looked down into the canyon. It was not empty. Dark figures moved in the shadows below, their red eyes glowing. She knew what that meant. If she fell, she wouldn't just die. She would be trapped forever. She took a deep breath and grabbed the rope. It was cold, slippery, unstable. She stepped forward. The rope shook beneath her weight. She moved slowly, carefully, 1 step, 2, 3. Then the wind changed. A strong gust rushed through the canyon, shaking the rope violently. Adara's cursed hair whipped around her, making her lose her balance. She screamed. Her foot slipped. She fell. The shadows below moved toward her, reaching with long, bony fingers, but at the last second, her hair caught the rope. Adaora dangled in mid-air, her cursed hair wrapped around the rope like a lifeline. Her arms burned as she struggled to pull herself up. The creatures below hissed. "She must fall! She must join us!" Adaora gritted her teeth. "Number I will not fail." With all her strength, she swung herself back onto the rope. She moved faster now, using her cursed hair to help her balance. Finally, she reached the other side and collapsed onto the ground, breathing hard. The golden door before her swung open. She had survived. But she knew. The final test was still ahead. The moment Adaora stepped through the golden door, everything changed. She was no longer in the forest. She was in a dark, endless room. And in the center stood a mirror. Adaora's heart pounded. She stepped closer. The mirror was old, cracked, and inside it she saw herself. But it was not the Adaora she knew. The girl in the mirror had dark eyes full of anger, a sneer on her lips, a posture full of arrogance. Adaora froze. "That's me?" The reflection spoke. "You were always selfish, always proud. You insulted the old. You disrespected the wise. And now, you think you deserve to be free?" Adaora shivered. This was her true test. She had to face herself. The mirror version of Adaora stepped out. It smiled. "Let's see if you can defeat yourself," it whispered. Then, it attacked. Adaora staggered backward as her reflection lunged at her. The mirror version of herself moved like a shadow, fast, silent, impossible to predict. Adaora barely dodged the first attack. "How do I fight myself?" Her cursed hair whipped around her, reacting to her fear. The reflection smirked. "You are weak. That is why you were cursed." Adaora gritted her teeth. "I am not weak." She swung her hair like a whip, but the reflection dodged easily. It laughed. "You are still the same, Adaora, stubborn, angry, foolish. Do you even deserve to break this curse?" Adaora's chest tightened. "Do I deserve to be free?" The reflection attacked again. It pushed her to the ground. Adaora hit the floor hard. Her reflection stood over her, sneering. "You think passing riddles and crossing bridges makes you a better person?" It hissed. "What have you truly changed?" Adaora's heart pounded. The trials had tested her mind and body, but had they tested her heart? She looked at her reflection, and for the first time she saw herself, all her pride, her selfishness, her cruelty. She had been disrespectful, arrogant. She had laughed at the old woman's weakness. She had never cared for others. Her reflection smirked. "You know I'm right." Adaora shut her eyes. Then she did something unexpected. She dropped her guard. She stopped fighting. She opened her arms and stepped forward. Her reflection froze. Adaora hugged it. "You are me," she whispered. "But I don't have to be you anymore." The reflection gasped. Cracks spread across its skin like shattered glass. Then, with a loud shatter, it disappeared. The mirror crumbled into dust. Adaora fell to her knees, breathing hard. She had won. But then a new door appeared before her. The final test was waiting, and she had no idea what it would be. The golden door creaked open. Adaora stepped inside. She was back in her village. The sun was shining. The birds were singing. The scent of roasted yams filled the air. Had she returned? Her mother stood outside their hut smiling. "Adaora, welcome home," she said. Adaora's heart leaped. "Mama!" Her siblings ran to her, laughing. The village elder nodded in approval. The curse was broken. She was free. Relief washed over her. Then she saw her reflection in a puddle. Her hair was still gray, still long. Adaora's breath caught. Something was wrong. A voice whispered in her ear. One final choice, Adaora. She spun around. The old woman from the stream stood before her, the one she had insulted, her wrinkled face unreadable. You have done well, Adaora, she said, but before you leave, one final choice remains. The air grew heavy. The old woman raised her hand, and suddenly, a small clay pot appeared before Adaora, sitting on a stone pedestal. This pot holds your fate, the old woman said. Smash it, and your curse will be lifted. Leave it untouched, and your nightmares will never end. Adaora narrowed her eyes. That's it? Just break the pot? The old woman nodded. Something felt off. Every trial before this had tested her wit, courage, and kindness. But this? It was too easy. Adaora hesitated. She had changed. The old her would have smashed the pot without thinking. But now she had learned to be careful. She took a deep breath, then bent down and gently lifted the pot instead of breaking it. The earth trembled. The old woman gasped, her eyes widening. You chose wisely, the old woman whispered, for inside the pot was your soul. Had you broken it, you would have been lost forever. Adaora's heart pounded. She had almost doomed herself. A sudden gust of wind lifted her into the air, spinning her in a whirlwind of light. When she landed, she was back in her village. Her long gray hair was gone, replaced with her natural black curls. The weight of the curse had lifted. The wind carried the old woman's final words to her ears. You are free, Adaora, but never forget. Sometimes the simplest choices hide the greatest dangers. Adaora shivered. She would never forget. Moral lesson. True strength is not in power or defiance, but in wisdom, kindness, and humility. Adaora's journey teaches that arrogance leads to downfall, while patience, compassion, and careful choices can shape one's destiny. Sometimes, the greatest tests in life come disguised as simple decisions. Choose wisely. Please leave a like, comment, subscribe, and share this video. Which country are you watching from?